Today we're going to continue working on the Silent King, taking some inspiration from my childhood. Hi guys, Jonathan from Two Raven Studios. If you're new here, welcome. Please subscribe, we have new videos every week and you don't want to miss out. So this week we're going to continue what we were doing last week. Last week we painted the menhirs from the Silent King. This week we're going to paint Szarekh himself, the Silent King. And he's got a skull for a head. There's an iconic villain with a skull for a head, so I took some inspiration for him. So we're going to paint him up, still with a lot of the fluorescent paints like we did last time. He's not fully finished, but I'm going to wait till the throne's done to finish the fine details on him. But he's definitely good enough for the tabletop. Before we get started, I just want to make a note. I tried a new camera angle for the airbrushing parts, and the first few steps, you got a really good high-definition view of the side of my airbrush. And after watching this video, I realized I really need to clean my airbrush. But after that, everything should be nice and focused, so just bear with the first few steps, and we'll have a nice clean view of what I did on this miniature. So as the camera goes out of focus, we're starting with fluorescent blue from Golden Acrylics. This blue is a little bit lighter than the blue from Green Stuff World, which is the fluorescence I normally use, but we're just kind of giving this an all-over coat on the main body of it. So I'm going to try to avoid the face and the pauldrons there, but everything else is getting this color. Next up, we're going to give some highlights to this by adding some Golden Acrylics teal into the fluorescent blue. And again, sorry about the camera being a little out of focus here, but we're just going from a high angle and just spraying on this color. Next up, we're going to use Floral Violet from Green Stuff World, and we're going to paint the pauldrons, the headdress, as well as shade the blue parts that we already painted. So we want to give an all-over coat of the pauldrons and the headdress. I'm going to do a little bit on the emblem on the chest as well, and then from a low angle, just shade everything that we painted the blue. The violet's somewhat transparent, so it will create a nice transition and give us some nice shadows. The tablet's also going to be purple in the front, as you can see. So I'm going to use Floral Blue from Green Stuff World to shade the violet. I also highlighted the violet by adding Floral Rose from Green Stuff World to the tips. You can kind of see at the top of the headdress. I forgot to hit record when I did that step, but just spray some of that Floral Rose towards the top of that. Now we're doing the opposite. The things we want shaded, we're using this Floral Blue. If there's overspray onto the blue parts, that's okay, because it can shade those as well. Switching over to the brush, after giving it a nice coat of white to make sure it was bright, we're going to use Floral Yellow with a brush on the face. This part's just a little bit too delicate to do with the airbrush, so we're going in with the regular brush and painting in the face. This is somewhat transparent, so you're probably going to need a couple coats to give yourself some decent coverage. I'm going to shade that down now using Floral Lime, which is a nice bright green color. So in the recesses of the teeth, the eye sockets, kind of underneath the skull. Again, these floral paints are very transparent, so you can give yourself some nice transitions here pretty easy. Kind of see the effect I'm starting to get. And just to do a little bit of further shading, I'm going to go in with the Floral Blue and do the same thing. I'm just shading in the deepest recesses here to give it a little bit more shadow. With the fluorescent paints, you always want to work from brightest color to darkest because they're very transparent. Now with a mix of black ink and black primer, I'm going to paint the staff as well as all the little mechanical internal bits, so like all the joints and any of the exposed cabling. I use this combination a lot. The primer gives it good coverage and the ink helps it flow. You may have noticed some of the recesses are shaded. I did an oil wash. I wouldn't have done that yet. I was just checking the way it looked. I'll go over that oil wash in a later step. We're moving back over to the airbrush to paint the weapon. I'm going to give it orange-yellow glow because everything's going to have an orange-yellow glow. I'm starting again with the brightest color, the yellow, and we're just not all over, just certain areas painting in this yellow to start this process. Now I'm going in with the orange. The areas that I left white, we're going in with the orange and then creating some transitions into the yellow bits. So I'm going to show you a little trick here. You can this is just a piece of paper towel, and I wrap it around the parts I don't want sprayed as I spray this part, and it protects the body. That way I don't have to mask anything off, and the overspray is not going to really affect anything as the paper towel gets in the way of the camera. You can kind of see the overspray went on the paper towel there instead of the miniature. And final step for the weapons, we're going to use the pink color Floral Rose, and this is going to help deepen that orange color and just give us some more shading. So the pink over the orange just kind of deepens it to a deeper orange. Again, all these paints are very transparent. If we get overspray here, it doesn't really matter because there already is pink on the miniature. Now we're going to go in with black oil paint thinned down with mineral spirits. If you need to clean stuff up, you can use pure mineral spirits. If you watch the Men Here video, this is the same process I used on that. So you're just going in all the deepest recesses, just tapping that brush and letting that black paint run into the recesses and panel lining everything. So you may see me doing it on the weapon here, but it's what I did on the body in the previous step as well. And clean up any mistakes with pure mineral spirits. That's the nice thing about oils, they clean up pretty easy. So the rest of this is going to be pretty much be doing the same thing in all the different colors. So we're mixing white in with our fluorescent paints, in this case it's violet, and I'm doing the broken edge highlights that I do in most of my miniatures. So you're just going along the edge, you can use the side of the brush on these sharp edges, and instead of doing one solid line, I'm doing kind of dots and broken up lines. It's going to make it look a little bit weathered, which is what I'm going for, and also make everything else pop by having that nice bright highlight. So this step is going to be repeated on all of the parts of this miniature, just with different colors. Again, we're working on the purple parts here, so we're using the fluorescent violet paint mixed with some white. I'm using an artist brand white, but you can use any white you have in your collection. Next up, we're going to repeat this process. There's just more white in the mix, and we're going to further refine those highlights. You can see I already did it on the chest. You're going to focus on the upper areas now instead of going around the whole part, and just add a little bit more dots and lines in there and further refine those highlights. We don't want to erase what we did in the previous step, we just want to help enhance it. And we're going to go into the black parts. The first highlight is Graveyard Denim. Again, we're doing the same thing, those broken edge highlights. Graveyard Denim is very similar to Games Workshop's color the Fang if you use Games Workshop paints. But this is the exact same process I did on the black parts of the menhir if you watched the previous video. Just going along the edges, making everything stand out nicely. And next up, we're going to use Troll Blood highlight to further refine those highlights. Again, we want to focus more on the upper areas with the second highlight, but it's the same process, just dotting along those edges. Now we're going on to the weapon. So the first thing we're going to do is mix our fluorescent orange with white and do the same thing. We're edge highlighting. Again, all of the steps to follow are going to be the same thing, just repeat it with different colors. You want to kind of take your time with the blade of this weapon because it's very much a focal point of this miniature. Even when it's on the throne, this is going to be something that draws your eye. You can use the side of the brush for the edges, but for parts in the center, you're going to have to make sure you have a nice tip and good control over the brush. We're going to further refine those highlights now by using our fluorescent yellow mixed with white and going in. There's actually a couple things we're going to do with this color, and this is the first thing, is further refining the edge highlights we did with the orange. You can use your finger against your hand or the miniature to help steady yourself, give yourself those nice fine lines you want. The other thing we're doing with this is we want to highlight those orbs, so we're just going to put dots in the middle of the orbs. If you watch the menhir video, I did this in the orb in the center of that. Same process here. Also want to highlight the little symbol and the little power coils on the side. Just a little dot there will make them look like they're glowing. And the last thing we're doing with this color is highlighting the skull. Any of the ridges, the prominent parts, we want to just brighten up with this color. So next up, we're going to take pure fluorescent yellow and kind of blend in on those orbs. Again, this is the same exact process I did on the last video. We're blending those highlights in with the surrounding area using that fluorescent yellow. It's very transparent and can make us a smooth blend easily. See the dotting motion I'm using. And one last highlight for these areas with pure white. I'm going to just put dots in the orb. Again, we want to use that little dotting motion. I'm also going to use this to do a little bit of further highlights on the blade, just the top area, just to brighten it up a little bit, the very top. And we're going to use this on the skull as well, to give it some last few highlights. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mix Arcane Blue from P3, which is a very vibrant blue color, with our white paint again, and now we're just working on the main body. We've done this process several times by now. You should be getting the hang of it. We're just dotting those edge highlights along the sharp edges. give definition to the miniature. You really want to focus on the hip bones, the fake rib holes, and the tops of the plates. And we're just going to put more white into that mix and go back and refine it just like we've done everything else. So here's our second step, it's just more white in the mix. Whenever you do the second step, just like all the other parts, you want to focus more on the upper areas instead of everything like we did in the first step. And once we're done this step, the miniature is going to be done for now until we get it on the throne and can flesh out some details on it. So this is where it stands right now. Again, I'm going to refine it farther once we get it on the throne, because the throne has a lot of things that are going to be glowing on it, and we want to do some glow effects and that sort of thing. But right now, we have a very nice basic paint job. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm still going to continue to work on this miniature a little bit once it's on the throne itself. I want to tweak the details a little bit. Speaking of the throne itself, I'm working on it. It's almost done. There'll be a video out for that shortly. You'll notice a lot of it's black. The reason I did that is because I want the king himself to stand out on the throne, so I want it kind of most of it to be a little bit more drab, and he'll be the focal point with this nice cape and the colorful him right here. I have a question for you guys, though. I want your opinions down in the comment below. Originally, I was thinking of painting the two Triarchs that go here as Beastman and Trapjaw to go along with my Skeletor, but I think it might detract a little bit too much from him. So should I just paint them as regular Necrons, or should I give them some crazy color scheme like Szarekh himself? So look forward to next week where we'll get the rest of this paint up. To make sure you don't miss out on that, make sure you're subscribed. If you found this useful, please leave a like, share the video, it really helps me out. And I also now have a Discord channel. I'm going to leave a link in the description below. So if you want to hop in there, get some tips, talk about painting, we're starting to grow a pretty good community in there. But until next time, keep on gaming and paint your minis.